Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to our series on Maimonides' 13 Principles of Faith, Yud Gimel Ikrim. We are now moving on to the second one of the 13 principles, and before we start, we're going to dedicate this in loving memory of Yoel Avram ben Tzivia and Leah bat Mazal Tov. Okay, so I'm going to be speaking very little over here. I'm going to hand you over. 99% of what's going to follow will be Michael. So
thank you very much, Mashiach. So we're on the second principle of faith, and this principle deals with the unity of gods and the oneness of gods. And what we are going to do today is we are going to be treated to a masterclass of logical reasoning by the great Rabienu Bahya Ibn Paquda from his magnificent book, Duties of the Heart, Chavat Levavot.
Which we already have a series on.
And
check that out, by the way. It's very interesting.
It's a superb series, and it's the very first foundational gate of the book is the gate of unity, of God's unity. So there's one thing that Maimonides, Rabienu Bahya, and many others believe that the foundation of everything is this belief in the unity of God, and to have that kind of crystallized or cemented into our minds so that there's no mistake over where our thoughts are directed and to whom they are directed. Although these are very abstract concepts, Rabienu Bahya's exceptional understanding of logical reasoning is going to give us a 7-point chapter. Basically, it's the 7th chapter of the first gate of unity, and this gate of unity consists of 10 chapters, but the one that summarizes and argues from every side is the 7th chapter. So if you were looking for an abbreviated summary of a huge chunk of the duties of the heart, this is a profound chapter. Now, chapter number 7 with 7 arguments for the unity of God, and we're going to go through them today. So I'm going to read the English of this, and I'm going to give small introductions to each of the 7 arguments. And but firstly, maybe you want to read the actual principle, the second fund. This is the principle as quoted from Perek Chelek in Maimonides' introduction to
Chelek in Sanhedrin, which is actually where the Daf Yomi is holding, by the way. So if you're doing Daf Yomi, you'll appreciate this. Okay, so the second fundamental principle, we are told to believe that Hashem is one. He's the cause of all oneness. He is not a member, he is not like a member of a pair, nor a species of a genus, nor a person divided into many discrete elements. Nor is he one in the sense that a simple body is numerically one, but still infinitely divisible. God rather is uniquely one. This second fundamental principle is taught in the biblical verse, which I'm sure you've already guessed. Shema Israel, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. That is, as Michael mentioned, first of all, that's from Devarim chapter 6, verse 4. And that quote there is from the Rambam's introduction to Perek Chelek 18. There we go.
So there's a very short introduction to his 7 arguments, but I'm going to give a short summary of each of the arguments so that you know what to expect. But he words them very beautifully. So the first argument is the necessity of a first cause. So everything in the world has a cause. And these causes, when we go back to cause and effect, cannot go back infinitely. There has to be some prime mover of events, and this caused or unmoved mover is God's. And if there were multiple gods, they would each require an external cause contradicting a necessary existence. So now I'm going to quote Rabienu Bahya Ibn Paquda on chapter 7 of the Unity of God. Arguments for the proposition that God is one. Since it has been demonstrated, by way of logical argument, that the world has a creator, it is now our duty to inquire as to whether he is one or more than one. It is necessary to prove the true nature of his oneness from 7 different perspectives. Number 1. The first argument is drawn from examining the causes of existing things. For when we consider these causes, we find that they are fewer than their effects. The causes of these causes are still fewer. The further back we go in tracing the cause of causes, the fewer causes we find. The higher we ascend the hierarchy of causes, the lower their number becomes, until finally, when we reach the top, there is only one cause, the cause of all causes. Let us now elaborate. Individual things are innumerable, but when we consider the species which comprise them, we find their number to be fewer than the individual things included in them. For each of the species consists of many individuals, and the species are limited in number. When we group the different species into classes, the number of classes will be less than the number of species contained in them, as there are many species in each class. We then classify the classes. The higher we ascend the hierarchy of classes, the lower their number becomes, until finally they are reduced to the fundamental categories. The philosopher Aristotle has pronounced the fundamental categories to be 10 in number, namely essence, quantity, quality, relation, place, time, situation, possession, activity, passivity. I'm going to stop there. And the what I just mentioned, there is a deep dive into that in the series that we did on duties of the heart. And if anybody, there's not going to be enough time in this episode to explain those, the essence, and its the other qualities, but I can direct you now. Duties of the Heart, episode 8, which deals with this chapter. And if anybody's interested, there's an analysis of these things at around minute 6.
Wow, that's
so if anybody wants to go into that, that's where they can find it. So Rabienu Bahya continues. When we trace the causes of all the individual things included in the species of these 10 categories, we find that they are 5. Motion and the 4 elements, namely fire, air, water, and earth. When we trace the causes of these 4 elements, we find that they are 2, matter and form. And what causes them? The number of their causes will no doubt be even smaller. Their cause is the will of the Creator, may he be exalted. The only number less than 2 is 1, and so the Creator must, of necessity, be 1. The same was said by David. Kingship is yours, God. You are most exalted, the first of them all. That's from Divrei Hayamim, chapter 1. He was saying that God is exalted above all who are exalted, highest of the high, the beginning of all beginnings, the cause of all causes and effects. So now Rabienu Bahya is going to deliver the second argument, which is the unity of design in creation. So we have spoken about this last week, where one way that we can visually see the effects of God are through nature, and how we talked about last episode, the fine-tuned universe, the absolute harmony, the single type of handwriting across the universe must point to a single unified being that created everything. So this argument, the second argument, will deal with this, the kind of fine-tuned universe that seems to represent one type of being. Number two, the second argument is drawn from the signs of wisdom which are manifest throughout this world, in its upper and lower regions, in its minerals, vegetation, and animals. When we study the world, it shows us that it is entirely the plan of one designer, the work of a single creator. For we find that, with all the differences in its substances and elements, it shows uniformity in its effects and its parts. The signs of the Creator's wisdom, manifest in the smallest as in the largest creatures, testify that they all have one wise Creator. If the world really had more than one Creator, diverse forms of wisdom would be manifest in its different parts and its species and individuals. Furthermore, we find that the world's stability and perfect balance rest on the interdependence of its parts. No part is complete unless complemented by another, just as links in chain armor, the parts of a bed, the organs of the human body, and the components of other composite things complement each other and need each other to function properly. One can see plainly that the moon and stars need the light of the sun. The earth needs the sky and water. Animals are dependent on one another, as some species, birds, fish, and beasts of prey, for instance, feed on others. Man needs the world, and the world, for its perfection, needs man. Countries and towns, the sciences and the arts are interdependent. Wisdom is manifest in the smallest as in the largest creatures. The force of wisdom displayed in the creation of the elephant, in its great body size, is not more marvelous than the force of wisdom displayed in the creation of an ant, in its tininess. On the contrary, the smaller the creature, the more evident it is in the force of wisdom and power, the more marvelous and manifest the Creator's achievements. What this shows is that all things are the conceptions of one designer and one creator. For all things reflect uniformity and are coordinated to achieve a perfect, stable, and comprehensive world order. If the world had more than one creator, diverse forms of wisdom would be made manifest in its different parts, which would not then be interdependent. Since the world, in spite of all the differences in its substances and elements, shows uniformity in its products and combinations, one may conclude that its creator, composer, governor, and designer is one. The philosopher has said, there is nothing in what God has created that is more wonderful than what he created, meaning that wisdom is manifest uniformly and equally in the smallest as in the largest parts of creation. This idea was also expressed by King David when he spoke of the world's natural order and facility for supporting life. How manifold are your works, God! With wisdom you have made them all. The earth is full of your creations. That's from Tehillim 104, verse 24. How great are your works, God! How exceedingly deep are your designs. Also from Tehillim 92, verse 6. Now we're coming to the third argument, which deals with the impossibility of multiplicity in a necessary being. So gods cannot be divided or have parts. If there were multiple gods, each would have limitations, meaning none of them would be absolute. True divinity has to be one and indivisible. So, Rabienu Bahya continues with the third argument. The third argument is based on the fact that the entire world was brought into existence from non-existence. Having demonstrated that the world was brought into existence from non-existence, we were forced to conclude that someone created it, as it is impossible for something to have come into existence on its own. When we find that a thing comes into existence on its own, when we find that a thing exists and it is clear to us that it came into existence after having been previously non-existent, we know, by testimony of a sound mind, that something other than itself created it, brought it into existence and formed it. Since it has been established that the world has a creator who created it and brought it into existence, there is no need to consider the possibility that there is more or less than one creator, for there could not be a world without even one creator. If it were possible to conceive of a world with a creator who is less than one, we would so conceive him. But since we cannot conceive of something less than one which can make something else, we may conclude that he is one. For in the case of things that are verifiable by way of adducing proofs, when their existence is proved conclusively, we need not assume them to be more than is necessary to account for the phenomenon that constitutes their proof. An analogy of the previously mentioned is as follows. If we should see a manuscript that is uniform in composition and is written in one handwriting, it would immediately occur to us that one individual wrote and composed it, for it is inconceivable that it was written by less than one person. If that were possible, however, we would assume that to be the case. Although it is theoretically possible that more than one person were involved in writing it, it would be unwarranted to make such an assumption unless there was corroborating evidence to that effect, such as a change in the handwriting in part of the manuscript, or some similar type of indication. This being so, there is no need for us, in our case, to know him is impossible. Rather, it is enough to see the manuscript, the inferences drawn about the author from his work, from his handwriting style, serve us instead of our actually meeting him. We may conclude with certainty, based on the consistent style and uniformity of the manuscript, that there existed one writer who, schooled and skilled in the craft, wrote it, and that no one else collaborated with him in writing it. A work written by two different authors would be marked by diversity, lack of uniformity, inconsistency of style, and would fluctuate in quality and character. The same can be said of the Creator, may he be exalted, because the signs of wisdom manifest in his creations are uniform in character. It is necessary for us to believe that one Creator created them. For the existence of all created things is impossible without him, and he is not something that can be seen, like substances or accidents. Since he cannot be seen, it is impossible to learn of his existence and attain knowledge of him except by way of logical arguments, and through observations of his creations which give evidence of him. In this way will our faith be strong, that he exists, and that he is one, that he is eternal, who was and will be the first and the last, that he is mighty, wise, living. Since he is not visible, the inferences we draw about him serve us instead of our actually seeing him. For this reason, it is necessary for us to conceive of one Creator who created all, for without him, the existence of everything that has come into existence would be impossible. But existence would be possible without there being more than one creator. There is no need for more than one creator. Therefore, if anyone maintains that the creator is more than one, his words do not stand, unless he supports them with a proof other than one which we have cited. It is impossible, however, to support such a claim, for rational arguments do not contradict each other. Rather, they all testify to God's oneness and rule out the attribution of him of plurality, association, or similarity, as God himself declares. And he quotes from Yeshayahu chapter 44 verse 8, "Is there a God beside me? There is no rock that I do not know." And also from Yeshayahu chapter 44 verse 6, "I am the first and I am the last." And also from Yeshayahu 48:13, "It was yet my hand that founded the earth, my right hand that spread out the heavens. I called to them and they endure in harmony." And finally from Yeshayahu chapter 45 verse 21, "There is no God beside me, righteous and redeeming." That concludes the third argument. The fourth argument is the argument for dependency. So if there were two gods, each would either be self-sufficient or be dependent on the other. If they were self-sufficient, they would be competing forces, contradicting the unity of the world. If they were dependent, then none would be truly divine, since divinity requires complete independence. So Rabienu Bahya continues with the argument 4. To anyone who thinks that the Creator is more than one, we say that the essence of all these supposed creators must be either one or not one. If he says that the essence of one, then it is one thing, and the Creator is not more than one. If he says that each of them has an essence which is not that of any other, it follows necessarily that there is a separation between them, due to their difference and otherness. Now, whatever is separate is limited, and whatever is limited is finite, and whatever is finite is composite, and whatever is composite has been brought into existence, and whatever has been brought into existence has a creator. It follows then that he who thinks that the Creator is more than one must also assume that he is created. We have already demonstrated, however, that the Creator of the world is eternal, the cause of all causes and the beginning of all beginnings, who is of necessity one. As it says in Nehemiah chapter 9 verse 6, you are the one who is God, you alone. Now, the fifth argument deals with the logical absurdity of multiple gods. So if there were multiple gods, they would need to agree and disagree. And if they all agreed, it would imply a single will, meaning they are one. If they disagreed, the world would be chaotic, contradicting observed reality. So Rabienu Bahya continues with the fifth argument. The fifth argument is drawn from the meaning of the concepts of plurality and oneness. Euclid, in his book, defined oneness as follows. Oneness is that notion in virtue of which a thing is said to be one. This means that oneness is prior by nature to the thing which is one, just as we say that heat precedes anything that is hot. If there were no oneness, nothing could be said to be one. The idea we should form in our minds of oneness is of absolute uniqueness and solitariness. That which has no association or comparison whatsoever is totally devoid of plurality and number, and has been neither combined with anything nor separated from anything. The idea of plurality is the sum of many ones. Plurality cannot then precede oneness, of which it is an aggregate. When we discover with our minds or with our senses a plurality, we can be sure that the oneness preceded it, just as the number one precedes all other numbers. It follows then that he who thinks the Creator is more than one must of necessity admit that there was one who preceded them all, as the number one precedes the other numbers, and as oneness precedes plurality. The Creator then is necessarily one. He is eternal, there being no one external outside of him. As it is said in Yeshayahu 43, chapter verse 10, before me no God was formed, nor will there be after me. So we move on to the sixth argument, which is the concept of perfection. So we know that the true perfection belongs only to a single ultimate being. If there were multiple gods, each would either lack something or overlap in their abilities. This means that only a perfect and all-encompassing God can exist. So Rabienu Bahya continues with the sixth argument. The sixth argument is drawn from a consideration of the accidental properties that are attached to everything that is plural. Plurality is an accidental property superadded to the substance of a thing, namely quantity. God created substance and accidents, hence not one of their attributes may be ascribed to the essence of his glory, as it has been demonstrated from reason and from scripture that the Creator is exalted above any resemblance or comparison to one of his created things. And as the plurality superadded to the substance of a thing is an accidental property, it follows that no attribute of plurality may rightly be ascribed to the essence of the glory of the Creator. And if he cannot be described as plural, then he is necessarily one. For between plurality and oneness there is no middle term. Hence the Creator is not more than one, rather he is of necessity one. As Hannah said in Shmuel 1, there is no one holy like God. There is no one except you. And now we go into the final argument, which is from scripture and prophetic testimony. So Rabienu Bahya continues and concludes with the seventh argument. The seventh argument is, if the Creator were more than one, then each of them either could have created the world by himself or could not have created it except with the help of the other. If we assume that any one of them could have created it by himself, then any other creator is superfluous, for the one can do it without the help of the other. If we assume the creation could not have been completed unless the creators collaborated, it follows that not one of them is completely sovereign or all-powerful. As each one is incapable and limited, each one is weak. Now, what is weak is limited in its power and essence. What is limited is finite. What is finite is composite. What is composite is created. And what is created has a creator. Consequently, what is weak could not possibly be eternal. For the eternal one falls short at nothing and needs no help. Consequently, the creator is not more than one. If it were possible for the creator to be more than one, there might have been disagreement between the creators in regard to the creating, and the creation might not have been accomplished by them. Since we find that the whole world follows one order and uniform motion is found in all its parts, never changing throughout the generations, we can be certain that its creator and governor is one. No one beside him can alter his work or change his rule, as it says in Yeshayahu chapter 44 verse 7, "Who as I can call out the generations from the start? Let him foretell it and arrange it for me." And as King David said in Tehillim chapter 119 verse 89, "Forever, God, your word stands firm in the heavens. Your faithfulness is for all generations. You have established the earth and it endures." What we can see from the Creator's perfect government of creation is that government can be perfect, steady and consistent only when policy and control are concentrated in one individual, like a king in his country and like the soul in the body. Aristotle has stated in his book, in reference to unity, "It is not good when there are many heads, but only when there is one head." And also King Shlomo said in Mishlei 28 verse 2, "When a land rebels, its rulers are many." What we have mentioned on this subject is sufficient for anyone endowed with understanding. It is also sufficient to refute the doctrine of the dualists, the Christian Trinitarians, and the like. For by establishing the oneness of the Creator of the world, we refute the contention of anyone who claims that he is more than one. Know this well. So that concludes chapter 7 of the first gate of the duties of the heart, which is the unity of God. And we have just witnessed Rabienu Bahya delivering a master class in logical reasoning of a very abstract subject. And although perhaps it went on a little bit, I think it takes an incredibly difficult subject and gives us from all angles logical conclusions that we can make to help us in our minds to understand and direct our everything towards the right direction, which is very important. And so
Excellent.
So I can't really say more than that. And he said, because he said it so
Yeah.
beautifully.
Very little left to comment on that because it's so comprehensive and every word is weighed. The weight of every word is meaningful here.
Yeah.
Baruch Hashem. Thank you very much, Michael. That was very interesting. Okay, so that's it for today. Next time we'll please God do the third principle. Until then, Baruch Adonai L'olam. Amen va'amen.